Howdy, kids. It's me, Bob Harris. Welcome to the mock draft today. You'll see a link in the side here. Hold on. Get you all involved. Hope everyone's having a great day. Like Kyler Murray. Hope we're all making $230 million deals for ourselves, becoming the second highest paid quarterback annually in the NFL. Kind of expected this to happen, right? Not a huge surprise. A little earlier than I expected. A little less drama. Don't mind that. I'm watching and so we're going to do a mock draft today. We did one of these the other week. It was very exciting. Had a great time. Going to do it again. Have some of our colleagues in here, and we're going to bring some of them into the chat to talk with us once this draft fills up. Myself, we'll have Matthew Whitfield in here, Evan Tarracciano, the Roto Wizard, and Jamie Calandro will jump in as well. I see my friend Mauricio Gutierrez has signed in. So if you want to get in on this draft, just go ahead and click the link in the chat, and it'll take you there. Also, if you want to get in on the fun here, get notifications for this YouTube channel, just go ahead, and we'd love to have you whenever. Just hit the link right down below over here. Hit the subscribe button, and you'll get notifications. Also, if you're subscribed to the site, you're getting the emails on these. This is a 12-round or 12-team PPR mock, just kind of what we did last time. Some of this, we're just testing out some of the technology so we can bring guests in and talk to people. Some of you who are drafting in the future will be invited to join us as well. So as soon as the draft fills up, we'll get it going. So go ahead and hit that link if you'd like to get involved. Would love to have you draft with us. Always joyous. Get something out on Twitter here if it doesn't fill up quickly. So yeah, the Kyler Murray news, exciting. Kind of nice to have that all wrapped up even before training camp starts. I'm sure Kyler Murray would agree with that. Let me retweet this and get it out there so the peoples can find us. And also, Lamar Jackson showed up today. The Ravens veterans report to camp today. And there was, his contract is up in the air. Kyler Murray's new deal, I don't know if that's going to make him more eager to do something. He's kind of been slow walking this, right? Lamar Jackson is his own agent, and he has not been in any hurry to do a deal. You would think he would, given his playing style. Seems kind of dangerous. Hey, Metalhead, how you doing? Metalhead Brian in the house. Andrew Leach, hi, how you doing? It is a crazy contract, but we're going to see more of those. Wait till Lamar Jackson gets done. What is that going to look like? I mean, the owner of the Ravens, Steve Bisciotti, already complaining about the fully guaranteed nature of Deshaun Watson's contract. What are the issues with that, right? And like Kyler Murray's the same amount essentially as Deshaun Watson's, but not fully guaranteed, $160 million guaranteed. But NFL owners have to put the percentage of the guaranteed amount in escrow to make it all happen. And so short of that, they can't guarantee all that. So that might be a limiting factor for some of these owners if they don't have the wherewithal that apparently Jimmy Haslam was able to round up. So jump into the mock, claim a team, use the link at the top of the chat right there if you want to get in on it. I may put it out on Twitter here to get it full. But I'll give people a few minutes here if you're just jumping in, got your email, and you're jumping into the chat here. Happy to have you. Some other things, Kenyon Drake today showed up for practice. He's going to be cleared to practice, it looks like, from the start of camp. We'll see some other things. The Ravens are one we're watching, right? That running back situation. Talked to Jonas Schaefer from the Baltimore Sun yesterday. And he says it's kind of a mystery, right? Like John Harbaugh has said, J.K. Dobbins should be ready to go to, shouldn't open camp on PUP. J.K. Dobbins says he's going to be ready to go week one. Other people aren't so sure. It was a pretty serious injury. It wasn't a clean tear. Gus Edwards was. So interesting situation to watch in Baltimore over the next few days, how much they like. Would it be a total surprise even if J.K. Dobbins is fully healthy, if they unleash him right at the start? That would kind of be the surprise, right? I would think a little bit. I'm going to probably go ahead and throw the link to this draft. I'm not getting a lot of teams claimed in here. So I'm going to go ahead and throw thanks, Fish House Hit, in there. If you want to get in, just jump in, use that link at the top of the chat, claim a team. I'm probably going to throw it out on Twitter right now and see if we can get some people in and get the ball rolling. It's a good time. So let me tweet that out. Live mock draft. Sleeper right now. Jump in. that didn't go well. That might go better. Go ahead and put the actual link up on the tweet I put out. Might make it a little easier for people to get in. There we go. Hopefully we'll fill up here and we'll get the ball rolling. I'll bring in some people, as I mentioned. And that's one of the goals, right? As we get closer to the season, I want to bring some people in and talk to some of y'all about what's going on. And we'll have some of our friends in this one as well. As soon as it fills up, we'll start the drafting and we'll start making fun of all your teams, including mine, and including Evans, and including Matthews and Jamie's. Been drafting a lot with Jamie. Have been having him on the Mock Draft Monday shows. If you don't listen to the SiriusXM Fantasy Sports channel, I don't know what you're doing. But if you do and you're not listening to Football Diehards, I'm going to be very upset. Also, you should go to footballdiehards.com. Everything is available right now. Magazines are on sale. You can get them shipped directly to you. Delightful time there. And the Fantasy Football Pro Forecast, 33rd season. We also have, and I see the teams are getting claimed. We're almost full. We got one more opening. So as soon as that's full, we'll get the draft rolling. Team 6 is claimed. We are off and ready to run. That's what we wanted. All right, everybody. Now I'm all excited. So we'll pop the draft off. The Critter Nation is on the clock to get a 12-team PPR. Usual kind of thing. 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, a flex, kicker, and a defense. So you know the drill. Critter Nation is on the clock to get the ball rolling. I'm going to go ahead and bet Jonathan Taylor comes off first. And he did. And so I picked the second pick. I claimed it early because I want to be able to talk to y'all, and it gives me more time if I'm at either end of the draft. So sorry to claim the spots at the ends both times. So we're off and running. Jonathan Taylor, CJ McCaffrey getting the ball rolling here. And yes, Chris Cook, I see you. So if you're in the chat, go ahead and chime in, and we'll get going. So do any of you draft with the FFPC scoring? That's 1.5 points per reception for tight ends. I do play in some tight end premiums. We may set some of those up. We're going to change this up if over time, and we'll do some different ones if you want to. We'll probably do some super flex, and other drafts, and try and maybe do some tight end premium as well. And get that ball rolling. All right. So, yeah, we will be doing it. I'm in the Scott Fish Bowl. That's a tight end premium scoring league. I do quite a bit of them. There comes the draft right there. We can kind of watch it as we progress along. I'll be watching for your questions. If you have any, just pipe in. I'll be looking for them. Again, if you're looking to get in on the fun here and want to be a regular on this site, just hit the subscribe button down over there. And you'll get notifications for all this stuff. So drafts rolling on. Cooper Kupp, the first receiver off the board with the 4th pick overall to Evan Tarracciano. We'll be talking to him in a few minutes here. Jonathan Jims, Dalvin Cook going a little early. Maybe a little bit of enthusiasm for this Kevin O'Connell offense, this Rams-style offense that's coming to Minnesota, and that is understandable. I'm kind of excited about it as well. We'll see how that plays out. And no surprise seeing Derrick Henry. I think that might be a little bit of a bargain for the Cade champs there. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. Been seeing these receivers go off in this order a fair amount, right? And there's Emil Kadlec getting the man he wanted, the player he talked about before this draft started. Najee Harris in the mix here. Let's see if I'm doing something in my draft here. There we go. Najee Harris, clear path to workload, high floor player. Wasn't as efficient as I would have liked to see him be last season, but look, the workload was phenomenal. Will we see the new quarterbacks dumping off to him the way the semi-noodle-armed Ben Roethlisberger did? Don't know. We'll find out about that. Travis Kelce goes with the 11th pick overall. Not a huge surprise. Joe Mixon, not a huge surprise. DeAndre Swift to Mauricio Gutierrez, my good friend. I just did his podcast yesterday. Go out on my Twitter feed. You'll find it there. Had a great time with him. It's in Los Angeles in the Scott Fish Bowl live draft at Trophy Smack. Quite the party atmosphere there. It was a good time had by all. Again, if you have any questions about the draft or just players in general, if you just have some things like Thomas just came in, picking 6 in a 10-team PPR. If he has to decide between Derrick Henry, Najee Harris, Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, I would pick Derrick Henry. But if you watch this draft, you'll kind of get a little bit of an idea of what other people are thinking as well. I love Derrick Henry. Again, if you remember, he's my 3rd ranked overall player. And my argument is this. Through 8 games last season, he had 219 carries. Way too many. More than he should have had. But still, that's a lot of carries. That's what I'm after. He was leading the running back field by about 40 points in fantasy at that point. I get the concerns. If you have concerns about the usage and the health, I could easily make the switch. If you want to play it safer, I think Najee Harris, it would be next on the list to me. Then Justin Jefferson, then Dalvin Cook would be that order for me. So if that helps you out, Thomas, I hope it does. A draft proceeding along. Interesting. The wide receiver run is on. Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, CeeDee Lamb goes to Emil Kadlec. Matthew Whitfield starting with the traditional running back heavy. We're going to bring Matthew on in a minute here and get some of his thoughts on his team and what's some views on some players. Some balanced approaches here. Emil going with a running back and a wide receiver. Greg Sauce also doing the same. Dr. Tower? DR Tower. I like Dr. Tower. Thank you for that, Dr. Tower 12. The K champs, they're sitting here moving along. Mark Andrews, a player I like an awful lot. So we'll let some of these things build out and, watch how some of the people are building teams. If you have questions, throw them in the chat. I'll be monitoring that as well. I'm going to go ahead and bring in Matthew Whitfield here in just a minute and get him the link and bring him on in and see what some of his thoughts are and how things are going. And again, bear with us a little bit on the technology, and if there are any issues, we'll work through them. This is part of why we're doing this now, is kind of trying to get things set up, work through any issues that we might have in advance of when we get really serious about this next month. As you know, we will be doing a lot of mock drafts, doing a lot of live streams. I'll be back here on Saturday, by the way. If you just have questions and want to talk football, I'll be back Saturday for my usual live stream. JD has wonders if the QB issues in Cleveland affect Chubb and Hunt. How? I think they'll make the adjustments necessary, right? If there is no Deshaun Watson, I would expect Kevin Stefanski to stick with that run first, run heavy approach that he's been relying on up to this point. Maybe even if Watson's there early on, they'll still lean a little heavier on the run. We don't know what the situation is, but there's going to be some adjustment. Even if this offense goes through the run, right? And there's Matthew there in the corner. We'll bring him up here momentarily. Matthew, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly.
And I can hear you as well. So I'm about to run out of time on the clock here. I better make a pick, and I'll go ahead and take Tyreek Hill before I run out. And not necessarily who I might have picked, but I was in a hurry, and so that's not part of the exercise. So, Matthew, as you're approaching drafts this year, what is your approach? What are you trying to accomplish as you sit down to draft this year?
Okay, so when I sit down to draft this year, I traditionally like to go running back first. Get me that one guy I can trust most of the time and go from there. And I like to go with receiver elite receiver if I can on the second round. I like picking towards the end normally, and so with this, Devontae, what's gonna be my next pick? It got taken, so then I decided I'll go with more traditional 2 running back. I got Mixon, who's gonna perform, I think, better, if not exceed what he did last year, along with a better offensive line, and Nick Chubb's Nick Chubb, so he's gonna get you that consistent production, and he can catch a little bit out of the backfield. So it both these guys kind of help in a PPR.
Yeah, there has been some talk that maybe Nick Chubb sees some more targets in this offense just than he has in the past. It has not been great. Kareem Hunt, I still think, is a totally overlooked commodity. He goes way later in drafts than he should. I understand why, but he always outproduces that investment level, and I kind of like playing the later play. But Nick Chubb, clearly among the best pure running backs in football. Steven Marquez asking a question in the chat. Do I ever go 0 RB as a strategy? Rarely, but something I'm doing a lot this year. And Jamie Calandro does not. He's got 3 running backs right in a row to start out. We'll be talking to him in a little bit. But so something I filled in for Jeff Ratcliffe on his show a while back, and he had been espousing a theory that I think still holds true because the running back prices are right. you can go that early running back that Matthew talked about, and then go ahead and hammer that receiver. And I'm obviously not doing that in this draft, but it's worked for me in a lot of drafts. And so you get a couple rounds. You can even go out to the 5th round. There's going to be guys out there like Elijah Mitchell, guys that I have some faith in. How long are you comfortable waiting? Like, let's say you did not go with the double running back first. You're on the clock. I'll let you make that pick before you get too deep into this. But that's something that I think has been working out well for me, because I think the value at running back, I mean, you see guys going a little later than they should. We're in the 4th round. We're seeing guys like Ezekiel Elliott, Breece Hall, Cam Akers. So if you wanted to get that wide receiver in the middle, you're still going to get a pretty good range of backs here. And I still think there are more after this. You went ahead and took Terry McLaurin as your first wide receiver, Matthew. How you feeling about the start?
I'm liking the start so far. I mean, like I said, I didn't get that second wide receiver that I really wanted in the second round, so I went with Chubb, traditional. McLaurin, I have a lot of faith in, especially with he's got a legitimate quarterback throwing to him now. So that's going to help him a lot. As far as the running backs, like you were saying, I'm going to go back to for a minute. I just don't have a lot of faith. I mean, I would take Gibson, maybe Gibson, Jacobs. I'm not going to touch any Baltimore running backs. And then maybe Elijah Mitchell. After that, I'm just like, ugh. So it's kind of like I feel like I need to get my running backs out of the way fairly within the first 5 or 6 rounds. I think we have to if you want to have a team that's traditionally going to compete at running back.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. Mauricio off to a good start as he often is. DeAndre Swift, a player I like an awful lot. I prefer to get him in the 2nd round, but he came back around against Stephon Diggs. Either way, I'm fine with that starting duo. A.J. Brown, an interesting player in a new home. You're expecting the Philadelphia Eagles to run a little more, at least I am, or pass a little more than they were so run-heavy last time. And then Travis Etienne, another guy with huge upside. I know Larry Holder at The Athletic was talking about it this week, or throwing out a theory that maybe we see Alvin Kamara-like usage as both a runner and receiver in this offense. And I think people easily forget how good Etienne was in college. It hasn't been that long, but when he was brought in and drafted, they kind of projected a role as more of a receiving threat, more of kind of a chess piece player than a true feature back, because they had James Robinson. They still have him. He's coming off, of course, partially torn Achilles. But Etienne is more than capable of handling a feature role, had 70 touchdowns during the course of his career as a feature back in Clemson in a super heavy workload. So interesting start for Mauricio Gutierrez. Fish House Hit has Travis Kelce, Devontae Adams, then got a pair of really solid running backs, right, Matthew? I mean, if you're looking at his draft, David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs, I mean, guys at least with past the workload. There's some questions about every back here, but and in Jacobs' case, maybe there is some. But how do you feel about that start next to you?
I mean, he can't go wrong with Kelce. Adams, he was going to be that pick, so that's a very good pick. And like I was saying, with Montgomery and Jacobs, they're like 2 proven running backs in the past. Montgomery's going to still be heavily involved, I would believe, as long as Fields goes along and matures and everything. And, with Josh McDaniels and the Raiders, they're going to be running a lot. And so Jacobs, I think, might see the most workload he's seen as a Raider up to this point, possibly. So, I mean, I think his team's really good.
Yeah, I think that's off to a great start. Your team as well started out Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb, then you followed up with McLaurin, Josh Allen. First quarterback off the board almost exclusively as I've seen, and so far 4th round is about the range. How comfortable are you? If you don't go quarterback early, if you miss out on say Allen or Herbert, are you waiting a while? How deep is that tier for you?
I'm just not a big believer in a lot of quarterbacks consistently. I mean, I like Allen. I like Herbert. And if I can't get one of those, I'm gonna wait. I might go after Burrow. I'm not gonna go after Murray or Hurts or Wilson. I might wait till Brady, Aaron, that late. Because at least with somebody like Aaron, I know I'm going to get probably anywhere between 30 to 40 touchdowns and low interceptions. I still think despite them not having that legitimate one receiver, he's always proven in the past he can make a receiver better than sometimes he really is. So I don't expect his drop-off to be steep as a lot of people think it could be.
Yes, I'm going to grab another receiver here, I think, in a second. I've started out with Christian McCaffrey, James Conner, Elijah Mitchell. I have Tyreek Hill as my lone receiving threat. That's going to change right now. I'll go ahead. And by the way, getting back to that zero RB question, I'm not really a believer in that, but I do think you can go one RB in those first 2 rounds and then go wide receivers for a while and still get some decent running backs. As you see, I get Elijah Mitchell, in the tail end of that 4th round. I'm pretty happy with that. And I'm going to go ahead and go. Yeah, Mike Williams, I wouldn't have minded. I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of a chance here with Cortland Sutton, a player I think might be back to his old self. So as you go forward here, Matthew, just as you build out your team, are you a fan of like doing a balanced approach? Or are you going to just play the value? Do you actually have like a plan going in, then kind of adjust on the fly?
I'm a just on the fly type of guy, but my plan is to right now. I'm probably going to go towards receiver for a while because I've got my 2 running backs, I've got my quarterback, and I got a receiver, and then I'll see what kind of value I can get at tight end too along the way.
Yeah,
if I need good value now, I'll do a tight end. If not, I can wait.
We're going to talk to Jamie Calandro in a little bit here. I started out with the 3 running backs, Austin Eckler, Alvin Kamara. Some questions about him. Leonard Fournette, some questions about him suddenly that may be driving his price down, that he's struggling to fit through the door. 260 pounds. He says, nah, it's more like 245. Still a little heavier than he'd like. But DK Metcalf and Marquise Brown. Brown, very interesting, now playing with Kyler Murray and no DeAndre Hopkins. DK Metcalf, the big question is at quarterback, Matthew. How are you approaching the Seattle offense? Are the receivers of interest to you? Is it maybe Lockett because he's going later? Or are you more interested in the running backs?
I don't want to touch the running backs in Seattle until we get some clarity of who's going to be the number 1. Because you got Walker, it's Penny, and I can't think of the other guy's name that
Kenneth
they
Walker.
have. And yeah, Kenneth Walker is. I'm assuming he's probably going to be the number 1 starter. But I mean, how many past 2 or 3 years been issues with that? And you had Wilson who could actually throw, and so Metcalf and Lockett were the benefit. Now we got a quarterback in Geno Smith who might, if you're lucky, you might get 200 yards out of him a week. And then Locks has the upside. He's got the arm, but are they going to start him at the beginning of the season? Where I think Lock benefits Lockett and Metcalf, where Geno doesn't. So I until proven otherwise, or I got to see it first. I can't trust that offense at all, really.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. We'll see how this one plays out. I thought we saw DK Metcalf fare reasonably well with Geno Smith, but it's totally a crapshoot. I'm going to let you get back to the draft. We're going to bring Evan in here in a minute. Thank you very much, Matthew, for joining us. I look forward to having you again here in the coming weeks.
All right, no problem, sir. You have a great day.
All right, man. So a question here in Lane Thompson asks, who's your favorite between Deontay Johnson, Scary Terry, and DJ Moore? Kind of, to me, it depends a little bit on your roster build. If you're going, like if you want a high floor play, if you took a little risk, like maybe I feel Tyreek Hill is a little volatile and maybe not a guy I want to get, that I want to count on. Maybe I'm worried about that offense in general. I can go ahead and get DJ Moore as my second receiver. I think he's a super high floor player, been consistently productive. And I like him a lot. I do like Scary Terry. I think he's a little better with Carson Wentz, obvious upgrade at quarterback. Hang on 1 second here. You want to go ahead and hit your hang up button there, Matthew? I think he's frozen up. All right, we're good then. I'm going to go ahead and get Evan Tarracciano in here. But yeah, so I mean, I like all those guys in the same range. I wonder about Deontay Johnson. But is it fair to wonder that whoever is playing quarterback for this team is going to be better than Big Ben just because he couldn't get the ball down the field, right? So I'm kind of interested to see how that plays out. We'll ask some of our other folks here what's going on. Oh, I'm on the clock. I should probably make a pick before I get autoed. Yeah, I got autoed. I'll try and fix that next time. Or no, somebody got autoed. It was not me. All right, we'll bring Evan Tarracciano in here in just a moment. Get the link out to him. And there we go, and he'll be in momentarily. So I think those are kind of the same tier for me, Lane. Just diving in, thinking, wow, I'm going to go ahead and probably going to have at least one receiver before that, and feel pretty good about having the floor for all these guys. I think they all have a solid floor. Expecting Scary Terry to do better, with Carson Wentz, I don't think is a huge reach. He's been pretty damn good. I kind of thought as I watched last season that maybe there were games where McLaurin didn't really show up, or maybe I thought some of it was on him. Rewatched some of that after the season, and a lot of it was the quarterback. So we'll see. Carson Wentz I thought was very serviceable, even though teams don't actually like him very much. It seems like he does fine from a fantasy perspective, so that helps us out a little bit. Hang on one second. Okay, we got it. Got Evan here just on the audio, I believe, today. Evan, how you doing today? Hey, Evan. Can you hear me? I don't hear Evan. All right, we'll try and bring him up. Jump on in if you can, Evan. Let me know you're there. In the meantime, following along, the picks are moving fast and furious as I'm watching some of the builds here. Some teams that interest me. The starting team, Critter Nation. Evan can't hear you. He's going to try this on his phone, so we'll see. Critter Nation, starting out with Jonathan Taylor. You feel pretty good about that running back, right? You feel like maybe I can wait a little bit on running back. He obviously did. Went with Deebo Samuel as his running back with the second pick overall. Followed up with Kyle Pitts, Deontay Johnson, Mike Williams. That's a hell of a bunch of wide receivers right there. A really solid start. Love Pitts. I could hear Evan a little bit, I think. Evan, are you there?
Hey, what's going on, Bob? How are you?
Fantastic, man. Good to have you on board. Thanks for coming into this draft. Looking at your team here, the Roto Wizard, drafting in the 4th spot. Cooper Kupp, the starting point there. Javonte Williams, Keenan Allen, super high floor play. Love that play. Antonio Gibson, Jalen Waddle. You're on the clock now. I'll let you make your pick before I start picking on you again.
Sure.
Here, 2 months.
Let me grab.
Oh, we got you on video as well. Outstanding.
Yeah, I was trying to connect on my computer, but I didn't have the camera, and it was being a little finicky, so I decided to do it from my phone instead so you could see my wonderful face. So,
you have 4 seconds before your time out. You get Kenneth Walker way too early, yes. I think. Are you sold on Kenneth Walker?
Am I sold on Kenneth Walker? Yes, I am sold on him to eventually take over the reins because I have absolutely zero faith in Penny to stay healthy throughout the course of the season. I think the interesting thing with Seattle is that it's, as much as we're kind of going back and forth between Walker and Penny, it's more or less a one-back system there. So it's the majority of the work will go to one of the players. And I'm not necessarily concerned about Walker's talent eventually earning him the job at that point down the road. I think that he's the superior talent of the two. Penny certainly finished strong, though. Hard to argue with what he did towards the end of the regular season last year.
So I'm going to take the contrarian point of view. I think Penny opens the season locked in as a starter. The question is, can he stay healthy? And I can get it. Some of the games late down the stretch were against pretty weak opponents. Also, in those games, he ran for like 200 yards more than any other running back in the NFL. That was a pretty good I would have taken Thielen right there. So I may make a little adjustment here, and I might just, when you get to the point in the draft where you're not loving everybody, and maybe you make the switch then to your quarterback position. What do you do? Like, what is the signal for you? When do you jump to the quarterback position? Are you just always waiting late, hammering the value at other positions early, or is there some set point where you start going, okay?
See, and that's what I was trying to do. And you might think I'm nuts for doing what I just did, but I didn't want to give away what I was going to do when we brought it up at the beginning. So now I have both backs.
So, breaking up a little bit there. I don't think that's crazy.
Quarterback leagues, I tend to generally wait until the top tier talents are gone. We had Allen, Herbert, Jackson, and Mahomes go around that 3rd, 4th round, and you're going to see that happen an awful lot. I'm perfectly comfortable waiting until probably the 8th or ninth round to even start considering it, because if I can look at the players that are remaining and still have a Brady, Stafford, Wilson, Burrow, all these players are out there, and I'm perfectly comfortable taking any one of them. So I'm happy to wait.
So I'm just going to say I'm not against that cornering the market on Seattle, especially in best ball. I'm totally for it. I'm for it a little later than this, but and that's fine. If you want to corner this Seattle rushing attack, I totally get it. I do have concerns when I do this in redraft, though. Are you worried in redraft that there's going to come a point where you have a weekly decision to make, and maybe if they're splitting kind of equally, which one's going to get the run each week? Is there any concern about that if you invest? And it could be other backfields as well. Let's say Denver as well, or Cleveland.
Yeah, and funny enough, I invested in Denver before. I think that it's been covered a lot on the radio lately regarding the time splits, where we get so hung up with the bell cow idea, the fact that they have to be first, second, and third down backs. They have to have goal line work. They have to be this and they have to be that. When, truth be told, you can have somewhat of a niche and still have a perfectly acceptable player. And again, this would be my RB3, whoever would be slotting in, or they'd really be filling in my flex slot. Again, knowing what Seattle typically does with the bulk of the work going to one particular player, I'm okay cornering it in the mid rounds, because truth be told, looking at other mid round players that are going to go, we just had Pollard go. We'll have Hunt go. Those guys are going to be kind of undisputed, the second fiddles, barring an injury. So I'm okay, again, cornering a team like this. Javonte Williams is an interesting case for me, because I think that he can be a low-end RB1 even with only 60% of the work. I think he's talented enough, and he gets enough yards on a per-touch basis where his overall body of work between the receptions that I anticipate him getting out of the backfield, I think that he's going to be slightly ahead of Melvin Gordon in terms of total touches this year. And I don't anticipate Gordon playing as well as he did last season either. So I'm happy to invest in him. But these backfields that are split, again, generally I'll stay away from them. Funny enough, the idea with me going into this draft, because I normally, nearly in every single draft that I do, I'll go running back, first round, second round. I traditionally will always do that. So this for me was a little bit of a contrarian play going with Kupp, as it's a full PPR. I kind of anticipated either Barkley or Jones to drop to me in the second round. I'm still okay with Williams. That was kind of my dream start, though, if I could go like a Kupp Jones or a Kupp Barkley.
Yeah, I hear you. So, if you look at some of these other teams, and there are any of them that you find super appealing or that you wish were yours?
Any of the other teams that are super appealing? Let's see here. I mean, generally speaking, I'm not going to be a huge fan of people that are in single quarterback leagues that are going to spend a third, fourth, or fifth round draft selection on them like we covered before. So those teams, to me, are going to take a bit of a backseat. What Gutierrez is doing on the very end. I mean, Swift, Diggs, Brown, Etienne, and Bateman in the start. That's certainly a hell of a start right there. Murray. Yeah. I had him in an awful lot of leagues last year, and his production very dramatically went down in the second half post Hopkins, and he really fizzled in the playoffs. But hard to argue with his first handful of picks there. I think he did well for himself.
Yeah, our illustrious leader, Emil Kadlec, quietly putting together a nice team, as well as I glanced Najee Harris, CeeDee Lamb. A lot of people like CeeDee Lamb. Mike Dempsey, my co-host on SiriusXM, likes him as a top 4 guy for him. Follows up with Breece Hall, a guy that we can all, have some interest in. I think just the Jets' investment in him. Darren Waller, Elijah Moore, maybe a little Jets heavy in this offense. Michael Thomas, a player I like an awful lot, maybe more than most. I don't think I'm going to get 2019 Michael Thomas, but that guy still exists, I'll take some portion of it. Followed that up with Kareem Hunt, the guy who usually almost always outproduces his draft price there, and I like him a lot better than I like Pollard. But Greg Sauce there took him. I wonder if you look at that running back build for Greg Sauce team, Evan. What do you think of that? It's not a zero RB; it's kind of a hero RB, and then he's taking his chances later. Are you comfortable with that kind of lineup? I think we got a freeze up there with Evan. Yeah, Evan made a freeze.
There we go.
There you go. What do you think of that build that you're seeing right now for Greg Sauce? Is that something you would do, like the hero running back, and then taking your chances later? I mean, Tony Pollard, I don't know. If I thought the Cowboys were going to give him roll, and adds Cordero Patterson to that group, becomes a little more appealing to me. I think when you're drafting running backs late, how are you feeling about that approach?
I like that approach, funny enough. And I do think, again, going back to what I talked about with Jones before, I think he's criminally undervalued in a lot of drafts, especially in a full PPR format this year. The amount of targets that I anticipate him getting with Devontae Adams off the field is extreme, to say the least. So I think he's definitely going to be a mid to back end RB1 without a question. And taking that anchor, like you have talked about, like other hosts have talked about on Sirius XM, it makes a ton of sense. The volatility that you typically will get per the investment that you have to spend for those RB2s, it's a really awful trade-off at times. So if you can take some of these guys that you know are going to get targets, I like Pittman an awful lot. I think that Ryan is going to bring a lot of accuracy to that team. He'll be certainly the direct beneficiary from that. Kittle is an if player to me. A lot of these tight ends tend to be, but if Kittle were to stay healthy, I think he can certainly threaten the number one overall tight end spot there. Cooper, Robinson, definitely solid. I'm not a huge fan of Pollard, but should Ezekiel Elliott go down, we've certainly seen the flashes of Pollard in the past, where as a seventh round investment, it makes sense in my head. Patterson's hard for me to trust, given a bit of a flash in the pan last year, and I guess we'll have to see what kind of role Algier carves out this year. I think that rookie's going to get a lot more work than people might anticipate.
Yeah, so a little question on the tight ends here before I get you out of here on this one. And by the way, Joe Hebert, if Lamb isn't a wide receiver 1 year here, we probably need to accept that he just isn't one. I think he will be one. Dawson Knox should have gone by now. Was the question at the point Dallas Goedert was gone. Knox still hasn't gone. I worry a little bit about target share for Knox, and he's a little touchdown dependent. Do you think that's the reason he's going a little later?
I do. Certainly the fact it's a PPR format is going to knock him down a little bit. When you take a look at the combination of guys that's remaining right now, again, it's an Ertz versus a Knox. I'll play with that right here. I'll take Ertz. When he went
you sniped me.
Sorry, I know that he's a favorite of yours as well. When he went to Arizona, he immediately became a target hog, and certainly had a cast back to his prior years, the early years in Philly, where he was just an instant favorite target. No Hopkins on the field, I think, is going to benefit him tremendously. The fact that they brought in Hollywood Brown is nice, but knowing the fact that he typically operates downfield, even though he has the chemistry with Murray, I still anticipate a lot of the mid-range work where Murray does tend to, play pretty well towards, will go to Ertz again. I think he's going to get just peppered with targets this year. And he has a value. This is kind of that spot where I like to get my guys here, whether it's a Schultz, Goddard, Ertz, or even Knox. This is kind of the sweet spot for tight ends for me.
Yeah, both you and Jamie crushed me on this one, and I'm kind of not a fan of anyone. I wish I had waited on my quarterback to this spot because I don't love anyone here. And so I'll let you go ahead and sign off, Evan. I'll bring in Jamie Calandro here in a few moments. Thank you very much for showing up and drafting and dropping some knowledge. We'll do this again on a semi-regular basis. Appreciate it, Evan.
Sounds like a pleasure. Thanks for having me on, guys.
You bet, man. A couple questions in here. Donnie, I see you in there, Don, and we will get you in one of these some point soon. So Knox, I think that's the concern for me with Knox. And I'm going to, now that I do like him, I like him fine. I don't like him here. I'm going to probably punt to later on tight end at this point. Once I get past that point, don't see a lot of players I love at any position right now. Boy, that's irritating as hell. So I'll probably go get one more maybe wide receiver that I think has some upside here and move on at that. Maybe I'll have to figure something out at tight end down the stretch. And that's kind of how I've been approaching it. I take the tight ends late, or either early or late. In this case, I didn't get any early, so I'm definitely going to go late. Some interesting builds here. We're going to bring in Jamie Calandro here to kind of wrap things up for the guest spots today. And I've been drafting a lot with Jamie. And shows up if you ever tune into the Football Diehards show on Monday nights. We often do the mock draft Mondays. And when we do mock draft Mondays, Jamie is often a feature of those. And so we tended to draft a lot and kind of know what we're tearing, who we're stealing from each other on a regular basis. He knows I like Allen Lazard an awful lot. So going into that last pick, I would have taken Ertz had he been there. Once Ertz was gone, I was aiming for Lazard. Jamie destroyed me in that one. So that's sometimes how the cookie crumbles in these drafts. You don't always get what you want, people. Just in general, by the way, I want to just make sure I answer some of the questions in here. Someone dropped on. I know Jamie's answered this in the chat, and he's joining me here. Hello, Jamie. How are you, young man?
Hey, Bob. Can you hear me?
I hear you now. How you doing, young man?
I'm doing okay. It's good to be on with you. You know, funnily enough, my first 3 picks in this were the same first 3 picks that I had on Monday night in our mock draft.
So talk a little bit about that 3 running back start that you make there. This is not a normal approach for you?
It is a very normal approach for me. I tend to go running back heavy as a general rule of thumb in my drafts, and that's especially for me this year. I love the running back class in this draft. I have a lot of them in either tier 1 or like high end tier 2. I mean, you mentioned it earlier in the show, and we talked about it on the radio. Kamara and Fournette definitely have question marks. In retrospect, I don't know that I go both of them here, but at this cost, I think they're both, if they play a full season effectively, are way too late, and I'm willing to take that risk going early.
Yeah, do you think, in cases like this where you make that riskier build, are you going to have to do some mitigation here later in the draft, maybe find some running backs that have, some of the, not high ceiling guys, but some of the guys that give you a solid floor, some of those receiving backs perhaps, something along those lines? Or are you just going to roll with what you got in this one? We draft in a lot of drafts, people, so we have the options to experiment a little bit. And if you're just like in a single draft, you maybe want to play it a little safer. That might be my approach. What do you think, Jamie?
Yeah, I generally, I just wrote another piece that'll be out soon, talking about Rachaad White with the Fournette news, and I'm kind of, he's on my radar a lot more than he was now just because of this news. Again, it's not deterring me from Fournette, but yeah, generally, when I do a start like this, I'm looking. I wish I had another running back to go with these guys, but Lazard had fallen too far, and then I needed a quarterback coming back here. So, I think I waited a little too long to give myself some depth at this running back position. Generally, right now, until we get some clarity on the Ingram situation, I have been taking the Kamara situation. I have been taking Ingram late. Not to give away anything, but that's just to give myself like RB Saints for the year. I did it in the Scott Fish Bowl.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect choice there. I get a question in here from Donnie in the chat, and I get it. He likes Renfro better than Lazard. I think for me, Lazard is a guy that is a potential league-winning type player, right, Jamie? A guy that comes in, you're drafting relatively late. You're not paying full price for. If he turns out to be that wide receiver 1 that Aaron Rodgers claims he's going to be.
Yeah, and I think that they have chemistry already. Not that Carr and Renfro don't, but I think Lazard's touchdown equity is the tipping point for me with the two of them. I do not think we're going to see, with Waller and Devontae Adams in Las Vegas. I always take a second to not say Oakland here. In Las Vegas, I think we're going to see some touchdown regression for Renfro. I definitely like him, but in from the line of scrimmage over the last 3 years, Lazard is ranked 7th, 1st, and 25th in yards per route run in short area targets. So I mean, he's value and end zone. So he's I agree with you. He's someone that I think could be, a top 24 wide receiver easily, and even push that top 12 upside if they don't do anything else.
Yeah, Donnie thinks he won't be able to handle the better cornerback coverage. We'll see. I thought he was great 2 years ago against the Saints in his breakout game where he was sadly injured. Look, Donnie, it's not like we're sitting here touting him. You're getting him in it's not like you're investing high-end draft capital in him, right? So I think that's the point, is the potential return on investment. The investment is not high, and the potential return is great. I don't care if it's Jamie Calandro is Aaron Rodgers wide receiver 1. I'm going to have at least some interest at some point in the draft. Well, maybe not Jamie, because he's not really the greatest receiver, but a great music teacher. But Marquez Valdez-Scantling is another one. I think, that has that, we don't know what's going to happen in Kansas City. We're all betting on, on Juju Smith-Schuster based on ADP to be that guy. But as Mike Dempsey pointed out on the Football Diehards repeatedly, Valdez-Scantling got the big contract. Juju Smith-Schuster's there on a 1-year deal for like $3.5 million. This is not, if you believe teams are investing money in what they believe in, and we've heard a lot of talk about Valdez-Scantling. Look, I'm not saying you have to pick him early, but you look at where he's going right in this draft. I mean, a 10th round pick, double-digit rounds. Alan Lazard went in, the 8th round. So, and that's climbing. And for me, like Christian Kirk, I took to Jamie, I thought in a pretty good spot for a wide receiver one, and this is something we do. Take these wide receiver ones a little later and hope for the offense to come through.
Yeah, if Lazard hadn't made it back to me in that round, I was definitely taking Christian Kirk. I'm on the clock here too. My cue.
Go ahead and make your pick. We'll let you pull that off.
Okay, so we're gonna.
As I ponder my next pick, I'm gonna have to go tight end here, and I'm not really happy about who I'm gonna get, and I'm gonna get somebody later that maybe will have some upside. And I think that's what you have to do at tight end. If you miss out on that early tier, and for me it goes, I love the top 4. I'll go ahead and throw George Kittle in there. George Kittle has a problem. He blocks way too good for fantasy purposes. And that's an issue for us, right? As fantasy managers, we want those guys that are out running routes all the time, like Mike Gesicki, who makes you wonder how he's going to fit in this Miami offense, which is basically where George Kittle plays in San Francisco. Mike Gesicki is not a hand in the dirt, knock your head off kind of blocker. I think he was, if not the league leader at tight end and lining up at wide receiver or in the slot, he was right up there with the wide receivers. I know there was a possibility he could have contested his franchise tag at the tight end position because he did have enough snaps in the slot to kind of to make a case of it. So we'll see what happens with him. How confident are you in Miami's offense in general with Tua Tagovailoa pulling the trigger for a great cast of supporting cast?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, they've improved in every facet. I think if you're expecting him to be Patrick Mahomes, with the average depth of target or whatever, you're kind of I'm on the clock again. You're kind of not really understanding what he is. But Tyreek Hill is fine for him. He can do those short passes underneath, and he can do what he wants with it. He's already got Gesicki. I like the additions that they've made to their running game as well with Chase Edmonds and Michelle and even Mostert too, just to keep everything honest there. I think, what am I going to do? All right, I'm going to back myself up here.
There you go, Rachaad White, a guy that all of a sudden is going to be very popular just because of the weight reports, right? And so something we talk about this. It was funny. I talked to Sigmund Bloom from Football Guys on the show last night. He's all about reacting to these stories in the moment. I'm more about reacting to the longer term, right? Like all the way back to last year. And I get it. He showed up and it's not ideal. They paid him if he's 260 pounds, if he's 245 pounds. Is that going to tick Tom Brady off a little bit or is it possible he can't get back? Yes, all those things are possible. But also I'm going to go back to the times he's played, dating back to the previous season's, finish. He's been a phenomenal play and a trusted target for Tom Brady. So I'm going to let these negative reports kind of create some value, create some leverage. I don't want to leverage that value. Is that kind of how you feel about it at this time of year?
Yeah, I've been taking him. If before this Fournette news came out, and that spot that I took Kamara in, I would have taken Fournette in that late second round, and even before that, I'm looking at some of the running backs that went earlier than 210 in the second round. I had him ahead of Williams. I had him ahead of Barkley. Yeah. I had him ahead of Chubb, not Aaron Jones. But with this thing, he's falling a little bit. But I think it's being overblown. So I'm thrilled to get him in the third round if I can here right now, because I don't think he's a third round running back as long as everything works out, which I think it will. But on the flip side, I like, if I don't get him, or even if I do, I like kind of hedging my bet with Rachaad White. And then even if I don't have him, taking the chance with White this late, because White was second in this running back class in receptions and first in receiving yards and yards per route run. In a Brady-led offense, he could have some massive upside if there's any issues at all with Fournette. I mean, forget the weight thing. If Fournette gets hurt, I think White is the one that we see busting out in that offense.
Yeah, Evan Tarracciano in the chat saying if you had not taken White, he would have. So
I always like sniping him.
I always get hammered in some of my picks here as well. Donnie Termiello also, he likes the Rondell Moore pick. I'm not sure about. What do you feel about Rondell Moore? I feel like he's a little gadgety until I think, and I don't know that Cliff Kingsbury's the most creative coach in the league when it comes to his offense. So I have concerns about Moore, but there is kind of a path to workload there with DeAndre Hopkins out.
Yeah, I liked him last year a lot. He was really successful in making plays last year. I mean, he was third in yards after catch. So yeah, I do like him, especially in this part of the draft. And like you said, with Hopkins being out, and that's still the case, right? I saw a thing that said that he didn't actually test negative, but that doesn't matter now. I don't know.
No,
I didn't even know if that was a regular thing. Yeah, so
yeah, I'm not sure.
I mean,
I think these guys all, once it's in, he didn't appeal the suspension, so you have to wonder, didn't even appeal it. So by the way, Matthew Whitfield also said White wasn't going to make it past him, and Donnie did qualify his statement at least until Hopkins comes back, and I agree with that. But this is another range where you're seeing some of these wide receiver ones go off in this. What was this? The 11th round? Yeah, Kenny Golladay. Whether it's him or Tony, I don't know. But taking a shot in those double-digit rounds, and same with Devontae Parker, a guy I've been getting a hell of a lot of. Emil Kadlec took him away from me, knowing he would. I took Tyler Algier in this round. I think this is like totally crapshoot. I think Mike Rothstein of ESPN wrote, basically, it looks like he'll make the roster. Could be an opening day starter. Depends kind of on what they're doing with Cordero Patterson. I'm fine with Patterson as well, but I think when we get this late in the draft and you're looking at guys like White and Spiller, I don't think they're going to be starters, right? I think and I think Algier could be a starter at some point.
Yeah, for sure. But they do have Patterson, then they do have Damian Williams there.
Yep.
There's a lot of unimpressive things about the Falcons offense, but he could be the one lone bright spot that they have there, maybe outside of their young receiver and tight end. So at this point in the draft, at this point in the draft, you took him right before I took White. I would have taken White over him, but if I was taking a running
did that
back,
have as much to do with the Fournette, or would you have taken that in a vacuum as well?
I would take it in a vacuum as well, but if you had taken White, I would have taken Algier, and I wouldn't have been throwing things for getting sniped either. All right, because there really isn't. I'm not. There's nothing really to be excited about with Damian Williams, and there's just so many. I don't know what their offense is going to be this year. So
how about Michael Carter going in there? How about Michael Carter going in this round? Do you feel like, maybe he's getting a little overlooked just in the enthusiasm for Breece Hall? I mean, Carter was a really good compliment to Javonte Williams in college, still a big play threat, showed pretty well last season. Are we kind of overlooking him at this point?
Yes. Yes, for sure.
Somebody just ingrained you.
Oh, yeah. I should give stuff away here. That's okay. I got my backup. Oh, I got a pick, though. Hold on one second. I don't need that. I don't need you either. This is another guy that I can't get to him. This is another guy that I've been taking at this point in the draft a lot. Who were we talking about? Oh, Carter. Yeah, I think for sure with Hall's draft capital and Hall's view as the clear-cut RB1 for 2022 and beyond, Carter should not be taken with any expectation of a floor. It could be 5 touches a game. But, I mean, he showed very capable in the receiving game. He had 4, I think, top 15 finishes last year. Some of those was with Mike White tossing him the ball, though. So I don't know if that can come again. But yeah, at this point in the draft, I'm looking around. Robinson, McKissick, Brian Robinson, Ingram, Madison. I like Carter better than all of them. simply
like-
for being a potential third down back. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Critter Nation has been listening and he's sniping me. I know who that is, and I'm not happy about it. The Irv Smith play, I probably would have liked him. I know Donnie said in the chat to go Noah Fant. Maybe. I mean, I don't think that's the worst play. Seattle hasn't made heavy use of the tight end, but maybe that was more of a Russell Wilson thing. Gus Edwards, though, I did want to mention. I want to get you out of here, Jamie, because I know you got something to do here, and I'll let you finish up the draft. Want to thank you for coming in. We'll do this more going forward. Help us testing out the technology here. We'll get it all wired up and have some fun with the drafts over the month of August. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you on the Football Die Hard show on Sirius as well, of course.
For sure. Thanks, Bob. Looking forward to it all.
I like the Gainwell pick as well there. Nicely done, young man. So I wanted to talk about the Gus Edwards pick a little bit here. So I told you I talked to Jonas Schaefer from the Baltimore Sun last night on the Football Diehards program. By the way, it's on 8 to 10, Monday through Friday, myself and Mike Dempsey. You should listen to it. It's very enjoyable. Look at everyone taking my tight end twos here. I see you, Evan Tarracciano. And Kenneth Gainwell is a guy I was also a little interested in as well, but that's okay. But Edwards, the thought is J.K. Dobbins' injury was maybe a little more serious, was definitely more serious than Edwards. It wasn't a clean ACL tear. And that's some of the talk about Dobbins yesterday. We heard from Ian Rappaport, who basically, came out and said, look, it's not sure that he'll be ready for the opening season, to which J.K. Dobbins replied, oh, get the hell out of here with that trash. I'm going to be ready week 1. I'm going to be ready for training camp. Well, we'll find that out soon enough. Jonas Schaefer kind of hinted that it's, it is a little bit up in the air. We really don't know what's going on with Dobbins, and that the knee injury wasn't a clean ACL tear. There were other injuries involved. Well, when that happens, they have to wait for the other injuries to heal. They often wait for the other injuries to heal, like if it's an MCL, to fix the ACL, to actually repair it. And that can delay things for them and can slow their rehab if they don't let those heal fully. So a little bit of an issue there with him. But Gus Edwards, all he does is get 5 yards of carry. But also Jonas Schaefer talked about what role he might play for this team, basically as a goal line, short yardage guy. We've seen Baltimore. They mix it up with numerous backs. I mean, I get it. J.K. Dobbins, what is his rookie in a narrow band, had like 6 yards at the carry. Oh, okay. That was great as well. But Edwards has done it over the course of time. So I think he's been an overlooked commodity to me. And so is Kenneth Gainwell. I know Donnie liked him in the chat, mentioned that too. Talking to some of the people in Philadelphia, they seem to think that they have big plans for Kenneth Gainwell. Some of those people might be Miles Sanders, who told us as fantasy managers, don't draft this, don't draft me, right? And I feel like that's maybe because he just doesn't want to he gets a bunch of crap from fantasy managers on his social media feeds. Don't do that to players, people. They don't care. They're not interested. And the defenses are starting to come off the board here. I may start diving in on mine as well. But yeah, so he thinks that, maybe Miles Sanders is not going to be the receiving back, and it seemed to me Miles Sanders, and you guys chime in the chat, by the way. I'm following along the chat. Love having you all here. Love you taking the time to come follow up on this draft. We'll be doing these on a regular basis at footballdiehards.com. You can go there right now, order all our products, order our premium service, or just check out the site and see what there is to like there for you. All our magazines are available for sale there. You also find them on newsstands across the land, pretty much anywhere you go, grocery stores, drugstores, airports, etc. You'll find the Fantasy Football Pro Forecast, the 33rd edition. Go ahead and hit the order button on that. The Football Diehards magazine, the draft book, the cheat sheets, all great stuff with great contributors. We go to great lengths to kind of make evergreen kind of strategy articles. And when you buy a magazine, you get some free sign-up credits for the website, and you get the premium service, which includes My Fantasy GM, a very handy tool to help you manage your teams, keeps you on top of what your opposition's doing, and helps you make some free agent moves, keep on top of all the things you need to keep on top of, especially if you're like me. You manage multiple leagues. I'll be in 30 leagues when the season starts. That's not best balls. That's managing leagues. I'll be in well over 50 best balls by then as well. Thank you, Joe. So come back to the site. We'll be doing these videos regularly, but if you go to the site and you order anything online, order the premium service, use the promo code Diehards to get a 15% discount because we love you. And we appreciate you coming to these YouTube things. I'll be back Saturday on a YouTube live here, and just do a live stream where I do the usual thing, answer your questions, and we'll kind of chop it up and talk about situations you have interest in or that I have interest in, the news of the week, etc. Again, if you missed it at the top of this broadcast, it was Kyler Murray, $230 million a year, $160 million guaranteed. Why isn't it all guaranteed? Why didn't they do it like Deshaun Watson got? Oh, I better make my pick. I should probably take a kicker or defense here, but just because I need to go quick. Defense will be, all right, I'll do that. Got kind of a late buy. I kind of like that. And I'll wait around and finish off with my kicker here. And we'll wrap this thing up. I like it. I like Matt Prater because he has a late buy and he has an explosive offense. Look at me go. Anyhow, so we'll be here talking things up, but I want to talk about Kyler Murray, the guaranteed money. Why they aren't guaranteeing all his money like Deshaun Watson got? Well, it's going to depend. The team's got to have a percentage of that guaranteed money to put into escrow by NFL rules. Oh, some late picks here of interest. Aaron Rodgers. Let me see what's gone on here. What has Cade Champs done? You want to talk about the late quarterback move? Nicely done. Let me see what the hell's happened here. So we look at his draft, and yes, his quarterbacks were the last 2 rounds. Cade, you should be proud of that. That's impressive. Aaron Rodgers, a solid, steady Eddie, even without the receiving core that we know and love. And by the receiving core we know and love, I mean Devontae Adams. Still has some players there. I like Allen Lazard. Maybe Christian Watson comes on. Maybe Sammy Watkins turns back into a thing. Aaron Rodgers is good, is my point. And you got him in the 14th round. Followed that up with Justin Fields in the 15th round. Like, I'm not excited about Justin Fields, but in the 15th round, I could be excited about just about anybody. And that was a very interesting play there. A nice build. I'll look at some of these others. I know Mauricio started off on fire, and kind of like the way it played out there. I'm waited a little bit on the tight ends, hoping for breakouts from Cole Kmet. Albert Okwuegbunam. I'm a little worried on that. And Donnie says you can wait forever on quarterbacks, and Cade just showed us how you wait forever on quarterbacks. Albert O in Denver. There's talk now that they like Greg Dulcich better, and that Albert O might not even be the guy. What? We're drafting him like he's going to be the guy. So that'll be worth watching there. Evan McPherson, the great kicker of the Cincinnati Bengals, who watches halftime shows and does not care. That's fantastic. So we're wrapping this thing up. I might take a second here and like to look at some of these builds and see if anything really excites me. So the Critter Nation team that started out with Jonathan Taylor, and then went along and waited a while. Went Deebo Samuel, Kyle Pitts, Deontay Johnson, Mike Williams, Adam Thielen, hammered that wide receiver value. Hammered it, and then comes back and gets a Harris. How can you go wrong there by drafting a Harris? Damian Harris even. I think that's a nice play, nice value in round 7. Went ahead and got Russell Wilson, then sewed up that New England backfield with Ramondre Stevenson. Took Ronald Jones. Thought it was interesting today. That one of the projections, I don't know if it was the Athletic, because maybe not the Athletic, projecting that Ronald Jones isn't going to make the final roster. I think he will, but we'll see. Jerick McKinnon, also there, a player I like. Derek Carr, one of my favorite quarterbacks, great value there. Irv Smith, he's stole a tight end I would love. Damian Williams, Darrell Williams, who may likely will be the number 2 to James Conner in Arizona. So I like that drafted off a lot. Who else do I like here? That's it. We've wrapped up the draft. So just looking over some of these drafts, Jonathan Jims, another interesting build at running back. I like the way this one played out for him as well. Started out with Dalvin Cook, then went Evans, T. Higgins, DJ Moore, and Lamar Jackson before he went back into the running back pool with A.J. Dillon, a guy that's going to have a pretty robust workload. I think we saw it last year, at least in the rushing world. And then Dallas Goedert, Garrett Wilson. I'm not sold on the rookie receivers, or not sold on all of them, but I often am not. James Cook for Buffalo will have a receiving role. One of the guys I talked about, you draft him a little later and maybe get a decent floor. Look, the Bills foreshadowed their desire to have a receiving back in this one way in advance when they tried to get J.D. McKissick, and he got away and went back to Washington. So I think that might be a good play. Jarvis Landry, high floor guy. Rondale Moore, we'll see. Mark Ingram might be the starter early in the season. We don't know what's going to happen with Alvin Kamara. I think the Alvin Kamara thing, he'll be pushed out to next year, but we'll find out. That's something to watch for as well. So interesting build there. Like this, let's look some of the receiver heavy. So Greg Sauce, I wanted to revisit because I thought he really started coming back with some decent running backs. And Tony Pollard, look, I'm not a Tony Pollard fan, but he's going to have a role, maybe even as a receiver. So he's going to get you points. And if something happens to Zeke Elliott, you're going to be happy about this. Cordero Patterson, a guy that I think is going fairly late, given his production last year, even if he doesn't have the same role as last year, if they're using him more at wide receiver, obviously a playmaking threat, I trust Arthur Smith to get the job done. Isaiah Spiller and J.D. McKissick later in that draft. Emil Kadlec ends up with Najee Harris, Breece Hall, Kareem Hunt, Dameon Pierce, and James Robinson very late. What happens when James Robinson comes back from that partially torn Achilles? What is ETN going to establish the lead role in this backfield? Maybe. James Robinson come in with fresh legs at some point in the season. That might be a good thing for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who hope to field a great offense. Appreciate y'all coming into the chat. Again, I'll be back Saturday. I'm just going to finish out looking these teams over and see what excites me a little bit. A nice run of receivers there late for Fish House hit. Thought it was an interesting start with Travis Kelce, Devontae Adams, David Montgomery, and Josh Jacobs, Patrick Mahomes, Miles Sanders. Then he went with DeAndre Hopkins, who down the stretch of the season after he misses those first 6 games. And it sounds like he's trying to get that reduced. I don't think the league's going to do it, but we'll see. Drake London, Tyler Lockett. That's great value on Tyler Lockett, even with lousy quarterback play. Christian Watson, we'll see. Tim Patrick may be one of the steals of the draft. There's be a good play there. And Mauricio, great draft for everyone. So we'll just sign off here. We'll be doing more of these mock drafts. We'll switch it up a little bit. We'll do some super flex, do some half-point PPR, maybe change some tight end premiums here at some point just to keep it interesting. We'll have some people in working on ways to get you more involved, either through your questions in the chat. Love having the questions. Again, if you like to have questions, you didn't get something answered, you want more things that are going to be answered. Matthew Whitfield says he's going to be dangerous. We kind of went through some of his picks early on. I kind of liked him. He really loaded up at receiver, especially with that Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Chase Claypool picks down the stretch. Chris Godwin is going to be healthy at some point, so I'm not against that. I'm not against that one, Matthew. Doing okay there. Not as impressed with mine, but I was confused and often am. I'm old. It happens. Anyhow, we'll sign off here for today. Invite you to come back on Saturday, noon Eastern time, for our regular live stream, Ask Me Anything. You can get in your questions, anything we didn't hit on. We'll talk some news. We'll talk some various aspects of the fantasy fortunes of some of these players that are associated with the news year items and answer any of your questions. And I appreciate you coming around. Go to footballdiehards.com. Once again, use the promo code Diehards if you're making your purchases there. You get 15% off. Also, if you're a subscriber to SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, you can hear me and Mike Dempsey every weekday, Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. If you tune in tonight, Matt Harmon of the Perception fame will be joining us. We'll talk to him about some of these receivers. You've heard a lot of talk about his view of Mike Evans, and it should be a view that's widely shared. So excited to have Matt Harmon on, and we'll catch you next time, people. Thanks a lot for coming. I'm Bob Harris.